Morning, everyone.
Good morning, Rabbi.
We're learning Mishnah Yama, Parakeh, chapter 5, and we are in the middle of Mishnah Aleph. Now, the point we're about to begin from is where the Kohen Gadol has entered into the sanctuary, into the Heichal itself. In one hand, he has the shovel with the coals. On the other hand, he has the ladle with the keteres, with the incense. And he has now walked up to the two curtains that separated between the Kodesh, the Holy, and the Kodesh HaKadosh, the Holy of Holies. Okay. Now, HaChitzayna, the outer one. Now, we have to imagine ourselves, we're the Kohen Gadol, we are facing these curtains, right? There was a curtain, a space of an amma, and then a curtain. So you've got, so the Mishnah refers to the outer curtain. The outer curtain means the one further away from the Holy of Holies, which is the one that's closer to basically the entrance of the Heichal. Then you've got the inner one, which is the one that is closer to the Holy of Holies. So the Mishnah is like this: Hachitzayna, the outer curtain, Haisa Perufa min Adarim. Perufa means that it was fastened. Okay, it was fastened from the south. Va'panimis min Atzafain. And the inner one was fastened from the north. That means like this: the Kohen Gadol, as he stands facing the Kodesh HaKadoshim, he's facing westward. Kodesh HaKadoshim was in the west of the Beis HaMikdash. The Kodesh was in, we could call it more towards the east. Okay, back end was east, front was west. That means to his right was the north, and to the south, and to his left was the south. So there is when looking, so both of these curtains, right, that we're talking about, there's a northern side of it and there's a southern side of it. So the Mishnah says that to the south of the outer curtain, it was fastened to the south. That means it wasn't that typically, I guess, the curtain separated completely from wall to wall. Now they took the edge of the outer curtain, which was to the south, and folded it over so that there should be an entrance to go in from. Okay, so it was folded. It was fastened. Means it was fastened from the south, meaning from the south inward, so he should be able to enter that way. And va'pnimis, the inner one, referring to the curtain closer to the Kodesh HaKadoshim, was fastened open from the north, on the other end. Mahalech b'neihem. The Kohen Gadol would now enter from the south, and he would walk in between the curtains until he hits the north. Okay, Higia Letzafan. Once he hits the north, meaning he hits the north. It means he hits the opening of now where he can where the northern end of the inner curtain is open. And what does he do? He enters the Holy of Holies. And when he hits the north, he faces southward, meaning he starts going now southward. He's got, as he walks southward, he's got the curtain to his left until he reaches the ark itself. Now, if we had a bigger picture, this could maybe be more helpful, but yeah. So in this picture, let me just show it over here first, okay? Mm-hmm. So that means here he was walking into the sanctuary, entering here, which is the south end, walking through, basically walking from south to north. He now enters here where it was fastened open, and he walks towards the ark, which was in the middle. Now, okay, let me show you on this side. Maybe that way everybody can see it. Okay, he's entering from here. These are the two curtains. At this end, it's fastened open, that he should enter from the south, walks through to the north, and then comes in. Okay? Now, they don't have, maybe they do have, but, right. See, in this picture that I showed you, there's no ark in the picture. right? They've got this round thing called the Evan Shasia, which was the rock that was in the second Beis Hamikdash, okay? But they don't have a picture of where the ark would have been. Now, I'll have to show you in the smaller version, okay? In this smaller version, right, they have it that the ark is in the it's in the middle, right? It's in the middle of the Kodesh HaKadoshim. No, it's going from east to west, right? It's situated toward, east to west, right? It's got poles on its side that are going east to west, but you got a pole on the northern side, you got a pole on the southern side. And it was located in the middle of the Holy of Holies. So in the first Beis Hamikdash, this is what they had. In the second Beis Hamikdash, they didn't have this. And we'll learn in the next Mishnah what they had. So in the first Beis Hamikdash, so now we have to, if we be talking about the next thing we learn in the Mishnah is really describing what would have been in the first Beis Hamikdash, or in the second Beis Hamikdash, it would be in that area. Even though the ark wasn't there, it would have been in that area where the ark would have been. Okay? So the Mishnah continues and says, Higia la'aron, he reaches the aron, noisen es hamachta ben shnei habadim. He puts the shovel with the hot coals down between the two poles. So in this picture, which is very hard to see, but he would have put he basically, as he's coming north to south, he hits the pole that's to the north, and now in between the two poles, he puts down the machta, the shovel that has the coals on the ground. Okay. All right. He puts the shovel between the two poles. Now, the next step is not mentioned in the Mishnah, but the next step is where, don't forget, he walked in with the shovel of coal and with the ladle of full of incense, full of ketores, right? He put down the shovel. Yeah. What did he do now with the ladle? What did he do with the ladle? And it's not exactly mentioned right here. The next part of the Mishnah says, which means he piled or he heaped the ketores, the incense, onto the coals. But from where? From what? When the ketores went onto the coals, from where did it go? If you read the Mishnah, you think it went from the spoon, possibly. It doesn't say. But what we do know is, and I'm going to read it to you here from the way the notes brings it down, the Kohen Gadol, meaning the Kohen Gadol had to now get the ladle, the incense from the ladle, into his two cupped hands.
What?
Stop. Oh, okay. He had to get it into his two cupped hands, which is which we mentioned that yesterday. And from his two cupped hands, it was now going to go onto the coals. Right? Now, if he's got the ladle in one hand, right, how is he going to get the ketores from the ladle into his two cupped hands? So we had this in a Mishnah before. The Kohen Gadol had to hold the ladle with his teeth or his fingertips and tip its contents over into his cupped hands. This was one of the most difficult services in the Beis Hamikdash, as we learned previously. That was mentioned in the previous Mishnah. This person has to be very talented, very, very agile, right? That he's been able to hold the ladle in his mouth, tip it, I don't know what, his teeth, his tongue, whatever, and that he should be able to catch it in his cupped hands, which is either going to happen from his teeth or somehow or another balancing it from the edge of his fingers and tipping it over. That's what he had to do. He had to get the incense into his hands, and then the Mishnah continues, Tzavar es ha-ketores al gabi gacholim. He then piled the ketores, so he heaped the ketores onto the coals, meaning from his hands, onto the coals. And he remained there until the entire house, the entire Kodesh HaKadoshim, became filled with smoke of the ketores, of the incense. When that happened, Yatsa, he walked out, he left, and he went out in the same way that he entered. So now remember, he entered from north to south. Mm-hmm. What the Mishnah means now that he walked out the way he came in means that he walked backwards. The same way that he walked in from north to south, he now goes from south to north, without turning his back on the Aron, without turning his back on the ark. He walked backwards, back in the direction of the northern part of the curtain, and then walked between the two of them, came out on the other side back into the Kodesh, and the Mishnah says, and he prayed a short prayer in the outer chamber, which means when he was already back into the Kodesh, meaning he was on the other side of the curtains.
He's still on his machinery.
No, he left it there. He put it, the Keteris filled the room, he walked out, he left it there. Well, it's going to talk about when he went back in to get it, but right now he left it there. It's a good point. He did not daven too long when he said this prayer. He didn't say it didn't say it in a lengthy way. Why? Yisrael, not to frighten the Jewish people. If he stays in there too long and doesn't come out, they're going to start getting very nervous. And that is because many Kohanim Gedolim died in the Holy of Holies, either because they were not fit for the position or because they had not performed the service properly. So, in the time they went through a lot of Kohanim Gedolim. So when the Kohen Gadol came out, okay, right? He didn't stay around. He said a prayer, but he didn't say it too long. Because he didn't want people to get scared. Now, what was the prayer that he said? So they bring it down there. The Bartanura brings it down in the notes of English translation. May it be your will, Hashem, my God, that if this year will be hot, rain should be plentiful, and the leadership of the nation should not pass from the house of Yehuda, and your nation Israel should not need each other or other nations for financial support, and the prayers of travelers, people who travel, should not be accepted. The prayers of travelers should not be accepted. Why? What's wrong with the travelers' prayers? Because travelers don't want it to rain. Because they're traveling. So when they pray for no rain, the Kohen Gadol davens, don't accept their tefillas. Because we need rain. Just one last point. And the fact that the Mishnah said that there were two curtains, it's clear the Mishnah is talking about the second Beis Hamikdash. Because in the first Beis Hamikdash, there was a wall. So therefore, the Mishnah is describing what happened during the times of the second Beis Hamikdash. And therefore, when the Mishnah says he reached the ark, there was no ark. There was no ark in the second Beis Hamikdash. So you have to explain it to mean the place where the ark had once stood. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Questions?
So these poles,